Welcome to Stampscapes Live. We have a quick one here for you. We're going to do a quarter page reflection card. So quarter page card base, silver foil, kind of a brushed aluminum-ish luminous blue foil right here. Okay. You can go with whatever color you really want to. And I have this moon here. Now you can do this moon, just stamp it out on a white piece of paper and cut it out. This is from Nature Set number 35. But one of the things that I did was I added some of the glow-in-the-dark folk art glow-in-the-dark acrylic paint to it. And then I sprinkled on some luminous powder. It's a luminous glow-in-the-dark powder by Saya, and there's a lot of powders out there, tons of them out there, and I imagine they're all pretty good. They come in different colors too, so you can kind of play around with your tones. This one is your standard kind of greenish glow-in-the-dark color, but they have so many different glow-in-the-darks now. Okay, so this is just going to get pasted on right here, glued on. And then that reflection right in there, we're going to have our horse right in that reflection down below. So depending on where you want this reflecting in here, you will move it one way or the other on this card. Okay, so I thought about just, we can go for something really simple and just stamp the, the horse right down here, but I thought it'd better, let's do some other objects right along this shoreline right here, and they'll be reflecting down in this lower section right here. You just don't want to stamp anything up here that's going to obscure the moon or that object that it's kind of spotlighting in the reflective area down below. All right, so these are foils. You can't just stamp any type of ink on these. You don't want to go with something like an oil-based VersaFine Clair or that type of pigment ink, and you don't want to go with a dye-based ink because it's water-based, and it's never really going to stick to these types of surfaces. They're largely non-porous, so you want to go with something like either a Brilliance ink, which will dry on here. It'll go on really nicely and thick, but you'll have to spray seal it, okay, because it doesn't adhere, but it'll stamp and dry on here. Or you just simply go with the StazOn. It's one of those kind of basic stamp on practically anything type of ink, which is a solvent-based ink. So it's like permanent ink. It's like, stamping with a like a Sharpie pen ink or something like that. Kind of make your impressions fairly quick with the StazOn. On this type of foil, the StazOn will dry pretty fast, or it dries pretty fast on anything. But one of the mistakes I made was to hold it down for too long, and then my ink dried in between my rubber and surface, just in a matter of, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or something like that. So just make your standard impressions. Don't hold it down overly long. Okay, I'm going for a few more trees on the side like this. All right. Now that'll dry pretty fast, okay? This is re-inked too, so I do have quite a bit of ink on here, but solvent inks are pretty fast. Again, it's just like as if we were using a permanent marker, any brand. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to bring this one out to the side because I have this moon. I don't want to stamp any trees because I don't want to put that moon over the front of any trees. Okay, and let's see. Trying to decide if I want one more moon there. I think that's all I'm going to do because I want to have space to kind of move this around on here. Or, to compose it. All right, so on reflection cards, let's see what this looks like with these trees in here. So you get these trees going up, and you get those reflections of the trees down below like this. And one of the things about kind of darker foils is that when you're using a reflective surface like that, you have this light reflecting back up in here. So it has this kind of luminous bottom portion like this with the benefit. It just makes the foil so much more interesting than just something like that. Look at this right here. And then you have this kind of vignette that's in here because this is not flat, so it's a little bit darker. But then it's really illuminated from the foil down below like that. Okay, so if you stand this kind of lower, you can see the reflection down there in the foil. If you put this a little bit higher, you see how it gets a little bit more distorted like that. Okay, so I like to have it, you know, midpoint and down with my objects that I want strongly reflected in that lower section. Okay, all right, so we have our, oh, let's call it our, I don't know, I guess those will be our background trees in there. But let's have some foreground trees in here as well. So let's just go with the same stamp. Now I don't want to put any foreground, again, in that area. It's going to be kind of my main focal point of the scene. So I'll flank it like this, in other words. Let me get my bearings again. Let me just make sure that I don't stamp it over in one area or another. Okay, so I have that. So if I put my trees like right in here and over, okay, so roughly in the same kind of configuration. So I'm going to keep these trees right here from there on over, okay? You don't have to be exact about it, but, you know, do keep track of that. As you're stamping. Now, if you ever kind of mess up, it's like, oh my gosh, I stamped that way too far over, then just, I don't know, change the, you know, this to a different scene or something, just you know, go with the different configuration. Provided you haven't glued in, you know, your top scene yet, okay? Like I can, you know, I can put anything up here that I want to still because it's not adhered in there, okay? And then we'll put this one over on the side like this. This is like one of the, let me put my black dye base pad out of the way just so I don't kind of just grab that one without thinking and use it. All right, and we'll go over here. I'm gonna use quite a bit of this one this time because it's the foreground, so I want a little bit of a taller impression mid because it's closer, so it'll look a little bit bigger to me. It doesn't have to be that way. You can stamp it lower too, but it varies the scale a little bit when you stamp a larger portion of it in the whatever distance represents a closer distance. So when I stamped up high like these, it was just that top portion. Okay, don't want to talk too long. Let's get that stamped out. Okay, so this is what we're looking at right here in this reflection card. It's fairly dynamic, just as is. You can even see like a little speck of dust on that. Really kind of stands out. So that's our base right there. And let's take a look at this right here. Let's bring it over here a little bit more. So it looks like I'm about a ½ inch off the bottom and roughly center of the card like that. Okay. Let's go ahead and glue this in. I'm just going to use some crafter's glue. And, I don't know, get a pretty even coverage on there. Okay. About like so. And here's a little thing too. The moon, I tend to put those textures up high on this, okay? Now you can glue this down if you want to, but I'm not going to do that quite yet. But let's take a look here again. And let's take a look in here. I think that looks pretty good, about like so. I'm putting it slightly off center just so it's not quite so symmetrical. About like that. If you go higher or lower, even like a 1/4 inch, that's fine. You could even have it rising on the horizon like that, Just provided you don't stamp over the, put it over the front of the trees. That would look kind of weird. All right, that's already kind of tacked down really nicely. And we're looking at this right here. Now, I mean, that looks pretty dramatic, but I'm going to put like a little horse in here. Let's see what size I want to go with. You could stamp this out and hold it right. Let me get kind of my bearings here. Okay, see that size right there? That horse right there that's drinking. I think I want to go with the larger. Let's go with the larger. I have a large and small version of it. Okay, so I need to see where that reflection is right down here. And let's see. Will that be in the reflected area right there? Let's see about right so. Roughly about, I'd say it's about 3/4 of an inch off the bottom right there. And, oops, pretty close to this tree right here. So I'm just getting my bearings here. Let's see. Looking at the top of the back, yeah. Okay, so I can see my little, just pressing it down there, I can see a little outline of where that horse will go. Things don't have to be perfect. I just definitely want to get that horse into that illuminated area. All right, so again, this is the Stays on ink. On this one right here, you can hold it down longer if you want to. The silver cardstock it's really quite durable. Unlike like the colored foils, which are printed over, it's like a silver, or aluminum foil that they just print that color over. So that color is really prone to coming off. But on this kind of more mirrored type of surface, I find that those surfaces are a lot kind of stronger. Okay, now these are non-porous surfaces too, so sometimes you get this little kind of air pocket underneath where you don't get a really crisp impression. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens once in a while. If you ever get that, okay, now I got it right here, like in that horse right there. What it does is it fisheyes in here a little bit, but what we'll do is we'll just go back in, and again, it's like Sharpie ink. I'm just going to color that in. I'm going to wait for it to dry a little bit, but it did that exact thing. It created a little bit of an air pocket. But again, it's just easy to really, fill in. Or if you're using a stamp position, you just hit it again, use a little bit more pressure in that area. But let's take a look and see what we have here. Okay. So I have that reflection like that. All right. Looks like this is starting to spring up a little bit here. Let me tack that down like so. And okay, I have my tape runner in my other room, so I'll grab that later. But this is basically how that's going to look. I think that Stays on ink is probably dry enough. So let me go and fill in this a little bit more. I should have used a little bit more pressure. I've been stamping on kind of the colored foils, so I've been a little bit more, I don't know, quick with the impression. But easy enough to fill in, like I said. And then we have this right here. I'm trying to decide if I want to add any more little touches in here. Let's go ahead and do that here. Let's add a little emphasis to the lighting scheme of this. So one of the things I like to do is I like to add a little bit of reflected light in here. So I just have my white paint pen. And on the side of the trees, kind of facing the light, I won't add too much of this, that really stands out strong. On the side of the tree facing the moon, I'll put a few little these highlights on here. You don't need to do too many, but something like that right there. It just kind of reiterates the lighting of the piece, and you can see them. They're kind of reflected in the water down below like that too. And then let's add some down in our foreground area. About like that. Okay. And then you have kind of illuminated objects in there from the moonlight like so. All right, my final touch on this one will be, a lot of people ask me, well, you know, if you have all kind of the visuals in the interior of the card, what do you put on the outside? Well, you put your word stamps or whatever you want on the outside. A quote stamp is good, or you can just do your greeting, you know, to whoever. And then on the back of the card, on the outside, you do your, you know, I usually do to and from type of thing back there. But let's do this on here. Now, don't do that. Don't put your greeting like this if it's a card to be opened this way, or your word stamp. Okay, so do it in the configuration of the interior like this. Okay. And I did mine on a piece of matte black cardstock. You can possibly stamp this out in silver, would be an interesting choice. Now, my silver's not inked up at this time, and whenever I use that one, I tend to ink it up right before I use it. But so I have some different choices on this Scenic Sentiment set number. This is either 6 or 7. I think I'm going to go, Moonlight was the one I was going to go with, but looking at these now, I think I'm going to go with Night Music here. I think that will be a pretty cool, whatever, card title maybe. Okay, and I'm going with the Brilliance White. You can use any type of white you want. As far as pigmenting, so you can go with oil-based if you want to, or anything. This matte black will take anything. All right, let me do it. Let me see. I'm going to do it. If I have it, where'd my scrap dark piece of paper go? Yeah, here's one of them. Okay, let me just, I'm stamping this out just to make sure that I have my stamp on here straight. It's hard to tell sometimes with the, you know, the kind of more scripty types of lettering. Okay, so I'm just going to roughly center this. I don't measure anything out. I don't know, for 99% of the cards that I do, I just kind of eyeball it. And if I'm off a little bit, then no big deal. Or if I'm skewed, then so be it. This is like a handmade card, and, you know, things like that will happen. It adds to the character of it if I'm off a little bit. That's what I say to myself. All right, so Night Music like that. And then we have this glow in the dark opening like that. Like I said, I'll adhere that in, but you have Night Music like this. This is going to stick out a little bit like this, so when I adhere this in, I'm going to cut off the, you know, the back of this foil right here, and they'll open it up like so. Let me see if I can get a, if we can see what this is going to look like. It's a little bit too light because I'm stamping this in daylight right here, but let me see if I can get this charged up with some light. And then we'll take a look at it here. And I have an incandescent light that I just turned on. I have all my other studio lights, but my incandescent light will charge this glow-in-the-dark up, pretty quick. I put about 4 coats of paint on this one too, of that acrylic paint when I was doing them. I just did a whole sheet of them, so I wasn't doing like one moon at a time. I just have a whole sheet that's, should last me quite a while. Okay, let's go like this. And let me see if I can turn off all my lights in here now. Let's see if we can see what this... We'll get the gist of what this will look like, even though it's a little bit light inside here. Okay, so there it is right there. My camera is really compensating for the lighting in here. Let me see if I can change that a little bit. Yeah, something like that. It's still compensating a little bit, but hopefully you can see. And now it's pretty dim in this room right here, but like I said, my camera's compensating for that in terms of the exposure. But hopefully you can see that that moon's kind of glowing a little bit. And, it just adds one extra, I don't know, kind of element to this scene. It's a reflection card, and I think it'll look pretty cool just with contrast, but then you get this kind of glowing element in there, so someone could potentially turn off the lights, and then you have these lights in here, and you have a glow-in-the-dark element, but because it's a reflection card, you have 2 of those, kind of. It's not a perfectly mirrored impression, but it's not too bad in terms of the that silver reflective area. So anyways, hope you like the scene. If you like this video and channel and content, hope you hit the subscribe. And if you have any questions, drop me a note in the comments section. Fast and easy reflection card here.